Real estate agents, if you're constantly trying to grow on social media and you're feeling like you're not getting anywhere, this video is for you. In this video, I'm going to walk through exactly how to reframe your thinking about social media, what things really make a difference for your business, what things don't, based off of hundreds of agents across the country that we've helped at my company, Jarvis Media, and exactly the strategies that make the most sense for real estate agents in particular to lean into so that you can see the best results without spending the entirety of your day trying to make content. If you don't know me, my name is Jarvis. I run Jarvis Media Consolidated. We've seen results like this for the agents we've worked with across the country, but let's jump right into it. So a lot of agents that I've talked to have this idea that either they need to be doing some crazy hack, like they need to have a certain amount of hashtags, or they need to be doing YouTube videos that have a certain amount of minutes per video, or that they just need to be having a billion different posts. And it doesn't really matter what those posts are. They just need to be having like 4 or 5 posts a day and spending like, 5 hours of their day every single day making more content. And reality is that that's not true. And there's a couple of reasons why, but the biggest misconceptions that commonly come up is that first and foremost, you think that you need to actually be doing what the content creators of the world are doing. And let me explain. So when we're looking at social media, there's a lot of different ways to leverage social media depending on what your business is and what you're looking to accomplish, right? So a lot of people, they see the best content creators in the world and they think, oh, I need to be doing what they're doing. Like, I'm a real estate agent. I want to have a bigger social media following. I need to be doing what the Mr. Beasts of the world are doing. Here's the problem. Content creators are designed, or their industry is designed to just make as much content as possible because at the end of the day, their end goal is simply views, right? Because what are they looking to do? They're looking to grow their audience with everybody imaginable, get the highest follower numbers, get the highest view numbers, so that they can leverage that and get better sponsorship deals, right? And so, yeah, that sounds great. And like we think, oh, as a real estate agent, I want to get as many views as possible too. So I want to do what they're doing. But here's the thing. That's their day job, right? So when they're getting up and they're doing their like, 8, 9, 10-hour day making content, that's all that they're doing. That's the entire model, is that they are just simply trying to make content that is getting views. And at the end of the day, that's why they're going to do things like, oh, this crazy stunt, or oh, this like, crazy like challenge or hack or something, because that's going to get a lot of virality. That's going to get a lot of views. That's going to appeal to the masses. And they can spend the entire day doing that because that's their entire job, is to make this crazy content, to use this crazy equipment, and to do this insane, videography stuff or insane challenges that are going to result in getting mass exposure from the market. But here's the thing though, as an agent, we don't actually want to get mass exposure. I'm just going to write that here. As an agent, we don't want to get mass exposure. We want to have a more streamlined system that doesn't necessarily get the most views, but that gets the right views. Because at the end of the day, we want to leverage social media content. Yes, it's great if we have more followers and more views, but we want to use this content to actually drive us to get to the right avatar, right? Which is helping somebody buy or sell a home in our market. Now that's very different because guess what? If we were trying to target mass exposure, most people in our market that are going to be watching content, they can't actually buy a home, or they're not ideally situated to buy a home. Whereas if we're trying to get the right views, we can try and get in front of the folks who are 25 to 55 or 25 to 65 who are actually looking to upgrade or looking to downsize or looking to buy their first home. Whereas so many views, if we're going for mass exposure, might be like 14-year-olds or 16-year-olds or people who are just not in a situation where they're going to be buying or selling a home anytime soon. So that time would be wasted because we're not advertising to the right people. And so when we're doing this, our goal is not to get the most views possible, it's to get the right views, and so that we leverage those views into them actually becoming our client. And so that makes a very different situation from what most people think. So you need to understand that your content is going to look different. So instead of just trying to get the most views possible and making content that is either, trendy or viral because it just appeals to the masses. Great example is, renting a Lamborghini and like, riding it off like a jump or a ramp. Like, yeah, that's appealing to most people. Most people are going to be like, wow, I want to see this. I have to see this. But at the end of the day, that's not necessarily going to be great for getting you real estate deals. That's just going to be great for getting you eyeballs. And eyeballs don't necessarily mean sales. Trust me, we've worked with a lot of agents. We get a lot of views. That does not necessarily guarantee that you're going to get sales out of it. Instead, we want to have targeted views that position us for the right audience, right? So we get in front of the right avatar, that position us as the expert, and they build know, like, and trust. And that ultimately ends up with them becoming our client, right? That is the process here. So then the natural question becomes, okay, well, what kind of content should I make that's going to position me as the expert? Well, this is where we need to get into, essentially niche content. Because niche content is going to allow us to target that specific audience. People don't understand, and this is a huge thing when like Facebook and Instagram meta advertising changed their targeting features. So you couldn't like target based off of zip codes, or you couldn't target off like a specific age group anymore. Everyone was like, oh man, like, this is really unfortunate. I was working at Coldwell Banker at the time, and they said, wow, like now I'm not going to be able to target the right people. But the thing is, you totally can, because when you're making content, your actual creative, the video or the image, whatever you're making, or the audio, if we're talking about podcasts that you're making, that is targeting. If you make a video that says, hey, 50-year-olds in Nebraska, I want to show you this really cool home that's going to be amazing for downsizers or for people, empty nesters, whatever it might be, these things are features that are going to make it so that certain people are going to see this content and go, oh, wow, this is perfect for me. And certain people aren't. And guess what? Those are going to be 50-year-olds in Nebraska who might be downsizers or whatever you're talking about in the video, whatever you're trying to address. So the creative, the actual content that you're making here is targeting your avatar. That's what you really need to understand, is that when you're making your video, call out your actual avatar. This is where your content needs to actually do the targeting itself, because the algorithms are so good now at serving your content to the right kind of people that it doesn't really take a whole lot of crazy like back end targeting like we used to have to do to really get that to work. And that's why hashtags do not make any sort of notable difference. There was a recent interview with Adam Mazzari, I'm probably mispronouncing his last name, the current CEO of Instagram. Instagram's owned by Meta, but it still has like its own leadership. And so that is where he is basically showing people that hashtags make hardly any difference anymore. Virtually no difference in how your content is going to perform now. Because at the end of the day, Instagram doesn't care what hashtags you use. It wants to know that your content is going to keep people on the platform. Because if your content gets in front of the right folks and it keeps them there longer, then they're going to be able to serve more ads to those people because they're staying longer on the platform, which makes Instagram more money. That's the end result. That's the end game of these platforms. Every platform, that's their strategy here. So we need to make sure that we're targeting the right creative, and then once we've targeted them, we keep them longer. So we have to have content that is niche, that actually is targeting our audience, that also has a high what's called retention rate, which basically means if somebody clicks on the video and it's a minute-long video, on average, they stay for the entire video, or ideally, they watch it multiple times. That is a higher retention rate. That means that every time your content is getting served to people, on average, they're staying for a really long time relative to the video. So that also has some tricks in there that I can talk about. But it's not hashtags. It's not like, posting at a certain time of day. It's none of that stuff that really makes that much of a difference. At the end of the day, it really is simply retention rate. Now, that being said, yes, you shouldn't post at like 1 a.m. You should post at more active times. Like, generally speaking, in the morning, lunch times, and in the evening. Like that is more appropriate. So like, trying to get around people's work schedules is probably ideal. Probably evening really shows to be probably the best time. But again, that's not gonna like make or break your whole strategy. If you're making garbage content that just doesn't appeal to anybody, that's not gonna fix it, is my main point here. But if we make content that is targeting the right audience, there's a high retention rate, which by the way, really just means it's going to be valuable to that audience that you're targeting, then you're going to get more viewership, and specifically, that's going to equal, I should say, more viewers, and also, because we're targeting a niche audience, the right views. The people who actually could become clients for your agency, for your real estate agency. So another example of why this is so important too is that you want to obviously be targeting everybody that makes, that is within your avatar. You want to provide them value. So that's going to be information, education, or entertainment, and ideally some sort of combination of both, right? People do like listening to an expert talk about their craft, but you also need to, give it some give it a little bit of umph and make sure that it's at least positioned well. Like there's a difference between saying like, NAR released, the projections for next year, or saying something like, if you're looking at buying or selling a home next year, here are the most recent projections and what's going to influence if you're going to be in a good position to buy or sell in your market. That's a different, intro to different videos that could make for a much different amount of people to actually want to view it because it's positioned in a more entertaining way, and the content, the education there might be the same, but again, it's packaged in a way that's more appealing. And packaging is very important because if you want to go to like a high school, you can probably find like a couple teachers that everyone loves who probably really enjoy, their content and really enjoy the subject that they're teaching. And then there's some people who don't enjoy it as much, who are a little bit more monotone, who don't really seem to care as much about the presentation. And you're going to find that people really end up being more informed and more interested in the content from the actual educator who is more interested themselves. So that is why the packaging really matters here. But the other thing I want to talk about is volume. So a lot of people, either make it out that like, you have to do all these hacks like hashtags and all this kind of stuff to make your content work. Or there's a lot of people who talk about, well, you just need to be posting 1,000,000 times a day. And at the end of the day, more volume does actually matter, but you shouldn't have to be posting every single time, every single day for multiple hours a day, because you do have your own business that you need to run. So if we want to take a quick look at this recent article that came out in Social Media Today, which is essentially reports suggesting that posting more often increases TikTok performance. Now, TikTok is probably the least important field for most real estate agents. However, we still do want to leverage this just because, it does speak to a lot of trends that make sense for social media platforms in general here. So we'll start off at the top here. Posting frequency is a key consideration within this, ensuring that you maintain an active profile which keeps users coming back and maximizes your opportunities for reach. But what is the optimal posting frequency? Well, Buffer, which is a social media management tool, so they have a lot of information to analyze, over 11 million TikTok uploads from 150,000 accounts to get a better understanding, that it's pretty significant often that posting more leads to more views per post, with TikTok's algorithm seemingly rewarding consistent activity. And this is something that we constantly come back to. Consistent activity is massive, and it's massive for multiple reasons. One, yeah, we like to think that like, oh, TikTok rewards us for being consistent, or YouTube rewards us for being consistent. But in reality, it's actually far simpler, right? It's that if you are making content, right? Let's say you've posted 5 times a week, right? Out of those 5 times a week, you're going to get in front of a certain number of viewers. This is all obvious, right? But here's the thing. Content distribution is not perfect. Like if you have a piece of content that would be super, super valuable to somebody, the chances of you showing up on their feed are high, definitely higher than if it wasn't going to be valuable to them. But here's the thing though, is that if somebody gets on Instagram or TikTok or YouTube or whatever, they're only going to view so many pieces of content in that day, right? Or in that session essentially, right? Because when we have a feed here, we're looking at, you have like one video, then you have another video, and then you have another video, right? You have like these different videos that are going to be popping up on your feed. Well, guess what? Eventually, you're going to get to like one, two, three videos, maybe four or five, but you're not going to get to like, video eight, or you're not going to maybe get to video 9 or 10 in that session because of whatever reasons. Life gets in the way. You can't just be on TikTok indefinitely. And even if you were, there's still only so many hours in the day. So ultimately, your ranking here, like which number here that your piece of content would be ranked for this individual that you're trying to get in front of, does matter. And at the end of the day, if we're making content that is more niche and that might be more informative, that's great. That might still mean that we get slightly lower than the people who are making this crazy viral content. So when we make content, let's say, again, these 5 different posts for this week, it's competing against all of the other posts that can be on that person's feed that we're trying to get in front of that week, right? And then of course, over time, especially short form content, does die off after a while, right? It doesn't have like the same retention as like long form content can have, which talks to also, a strategy for long form content is that you can get in front of people, years later, where a short form, that's really not likely to happen. So when we're getting in front of our viewers, we need to know that we might be ranking on their page, on their like For You page, for instance, but that might be so low that they never get to it, right? Even if the content is good. So when you're making 5 posts a day, or 5 posts a week, well, yeah, like that's not a bad amount of content, don't get me wrong. There's no magic number here, but it just goes to say that like you're basically rolling the dice that you're trying to get in front of the right kind of viewers, right? And so when you do it 5 times, that's great. But if you did post 20 times a week instead, you're 4xing the amount of times that you have, the opportunities you have to get in front of people. And what happens with the viewer's journey is that eventually they're going to get in front of people, creators, or for instance, like your content, right? So this is your content, talking to them. And eventually when they do get in front of your content, they're going to say, oh, wow, okay, cool. Like this was valuable if you're doing your content right. Like I like this. Like this is super appealing to me. And then, they have a higher retention, right? And so now the algorithm knows that like, oh, well, when they stopped on this new person's video, this new creator's video for them, they actually had a higher retention. So let's make sure that we serve them that again because they seem to like it. Like we'll actually make sure that their feed gets this more frequently. And if you can't constantly keep getting high retention on these views, then you're going to start to show up proceedingly more and more commonly for that person, right? And so what having more content does, it gives you more at bats. It gives you more opportunities to actually build a relationship with somebody. It's not that the algorithm is like, oh, you posted 10 times today or 10 times this week. Like we're going to give you a gold star so that you now get more views. Like we think about that. We think about us getting rewarded by the algorithms. But in reality, what it is just that we have more chances to roll the dice when we make more content. Now, that being said, you can't sacrifice quality, and that's why it comes into play that as a real estate agent with limited time here and content not being your primary job here, more so being a marketing tool for you, that's why we want to focus on having more quality content instead of more quantity of content when we have to choose between the two. But that is how essentially more volume actually helps you. It's not that, TikTok or YouTube likes you more. It's that you have more chances to get in front of an audience that might actually want to see your content daily, and that's how you can build your following. So jumping back over here to the article. So here's a good example of visualization of analyzing 11 million posts here. So you see that 2 to 5 posts had around a 17-ish% increase in views per post. 30% increase in views per post with 6 to 10 posts per week. 11 plus posts had a close to about 35% increase in the views per post. So that's not total views, that's views per post. And so what this is saying is that essentially, posting more than 11 times per week will double the average rate of performance. And the reason why is that the average views here, it talks about there's a little bit of contention between average views, because what's actually happening is that when you post more often, you increase your chances of getting a big reach with a single post. And obviously, TikTok does have a lot of virality associated with it. Like you do have more chances at going viral than like other platforms, just because it's more broad, emphasizing to markets. But even as accounting for the consideration that yes, you just have more chances of actually having one post go viral. The data still shows that posting more often in general does lead to better results overall. Now, here's a great quote, which is my favorite from this article. Posting more frequently doesn't necessarily raise the floor. So it doesn't necessarily raise the minimum views that you're going to get, but it for sure raises the ceiling of views that you're likely to get. And it goes on to say, obviously, so while that doesn't mean that every single, update is going to see massive results that are increasing, what it really is, it's like it's slowly just adding like brick by brick that ends up making a huge tower, right? Because essentially you're just getting more likely, more chances to show up to people who are going to really like your content that's going to help you build an audience and establish your brand. So then it kind of goes into how making like, crazy amounts of viral content are more likely with AI. And that is true. But at the end of the day, one thing I really recommend agents do is you don't over index on tools that will create content in replacement of you. You should over index on tools that will help you make more content easily. For example, I have the studio space set up where I have lights where I can literally just like, flick on like a switch or whatever, and then it just kind of, makes all these lights come on. That makes it easier for me to, in the morning, because I record this at like 5 a.m., record more videos faster, and that is allowing me to basically make more content more easily. And I kind of messed up that like the color changed now, but you get the point. That stuff you should 100% index on because that makes it, you get more bang for your buck out of your time. And I think investing in your time application is wildly important, especially as agents are super busy, right? Just like all small business owners. So you should index there, but don't index on content that's going to make tools that are going to make content for you. For instance, like the auto posting platforms, those pieces of content generally hurt you because what it does is that when the platforms are putting your content out there, and let's say you have like, 10 pieces of like auto posted content, like these are gonna be like just like the boilerplate stuff that like the I forgot what it is, but KCM, like all these other tools that just like do like the same exact post to everybody's platform for you. Even if they're reels, even if they're nice looking videos, generally speaking, they have very low engagement rates versus like you talking to a camera, what you would get, right? Because it's just not as appealing. The same reason why they're able to just mass produce this is because it's just lower effort. And lower effort a lot of times means lower quality, which people will just not listen to. They won't watch, they'll skip it, and that will give you really low retention. Well, here's where this is an issue because a lot of people use these auto posting platforms because they think that, oh, well, this is going to just help me stay relevant. And then every once in a while, I'll come in and record content. Well, two issues there. One, it gives you that false sense of security, like this is actually helping you, when in reality, it's hurting you. And two, which is bad enough. But then two, what this is doing is this is lowering your average retention. So when you do finally have the time to make a great video that's researched and you have some time, you're on camera, you're talking to a specific niche, it's going to use the average here as your starting point, right? Now you can still have a piece of content go viral if it was really, really great, but the deck is stacked against you because all of this content that has given you a bad track record is going to influence the good video that you did. And that is where you're going to run into trouble there. So you don't want to rely on this content to just consistently give you low retention, hurt your chances of actually doing well when you do have a good piece of content, because it's going to disincentivize you from making the content that's actually going to make a difference, that will actually get you to build a relationship with your audience and will actually yield in your marketing and actually get people to want to know they can trust you and want to work with you. So that is a huge issue there. You want to leverage tools that make it more likely that you can record good content. And unfortunately, it's the case that you should just be on camera. Video content works way better than any other form of content right now on social media. And on top of that, content where it shows an actual person talking to the camera, that is going to be the most, the easiest way to convey your expertise, the easiest way to convey your brand. That's why I also don't really love the AI recreation software, even if it looks perfect, which I don't think it does quite yet, but I'm sure it will get there eventually. you don't want to be building a brand around stuff that you're not talking about, because what that does is that is unaligned with what you actually represent, and that's not going to be great for your marketing funnel. You don't want to just make content that looks like you. You want to be on camera and talk about this stuff and actually take an incentive to look at your content and make the tangible differences that are going to help you grow bigger. All of the top creators in the real estate space have taken time to invest in their content over years. And I know that doesn't sound fun, but it does yield insane results, as we've seen from a ton of people across the world, a ton of real estate agents across the country. Krista Mayshore, Ken Pozak, a ton of examples of people making great content, which takes time, but has yielded outstanding rewards. And it really helps to keep you competitive when you have a brand in your market and you're seen as the go-to person in that market. That is value. That is invaluable. There's no way you can put a price tag on that, because it makes you just the competitor, the competitive juggernaut in your market that nobody can compete with. So guys, at the end of the day, you just want to have high volume content, that as much high volume as you can without sacrificing on the quality. Invest in tools that are going to make content creation easier for you, not auto posting things that are going to lower your track record on the algorithms. And at the end of the day, just do your best here, because content is hard, but if you can be consistent, you will outperform 90% of agents on social media.